was talking about guns online with 300 baud modems in the early 80s, believe it or not. So it's been a long time of talking about guns, you know, between the bulletin board systems and then up through the internet and then of course on the World Wide Web. I was a staff member at the Firing Line forums, which were owned by Rich Lucibella. And when he took over S.W.A.T magazine, he invited me to become part of the staff there. In late 2002, I was actually in Colorado evaluating the firearms training program for ESI, Executive Security International. And while I was out there, I met Tom Foreman and saw the building that was to become the Valhalla Training Center. At the time, it was supposed to be a club at the Elk Mountain Resort, and Tom also thought that in the background he might have some training. Specifically, he might have training companies or instructors rent the facility. Within a few months of that, we had struck a deal where I was going to come in and run the facility with the caveat that it be the Valhalla Shooting Club and Training Center. And subsequently ran that operation until the end of 2007 when Tom and his family decided to shut the training center down and pursue the resort strictly as a recreational venue. And that's when I formed I.C.E. Training Company. I.C.E. LLC was a company that had been in the background for a long time. Integrity, consistency, and efficiency is what the I.C.E. stand for. And I was actually using that as a name for my consulting company and for my publishing company in the background, so it was a natural to use that name when we spun up the training company. And it was a very quick transition to move all the training programs under that company name and to start traveling and spending a lot more time at a lot of different ranges, bringing the training to people who maybe weren't able to get to Colorado or weren't inclined to come out to Colorado. I was commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Army Reserve after graduating from the Military College of Vermont at Norwich University. And that led me actually into the IRR and into a career in executive protection. So I was working a lot of private security and got to a point where I decided that I really did want to get out of the reserve law enforcement that I was doing and get into full-time law enforcement. I really enjoyed my time in law enforcement, but it really wasn't for me. The bureaucracy was really frustrating. So I left law enforcement service in 2001 really to pursue a full-time training career. My background is relatively soft when you look at the resumes of a lot of instructors in the industry. And people with my background, you know, limited law enforcement, short time on a SWAT team, some executive protection, generally don't get invited to provide training to the various branches of military special operations folks that we have in this country. So I take that as a great honor. The opportunity first presented itself in Colorado to work with our Army Special Forces. And we developed an extreme close quarters counter-ambush package with both the combat-focused shooting program and a more realistic, dynamic approach to close quarters counter-ambush, integrating unarmed skills in the firearm, and really grew from there. We've got over 60 instructors who are certified to teach combat-focused shooting in one way or another, either inside of their military law enforcement units or in the private sector. Several of them have worked with me, either at I.C.E. Training Company or other operations in the past. And many of them act as adjuncts to I.C.E. training. Obviously, I don't teach all the courses. In fact, the running joke inside of the combat-focused community is you're better off getting it from somebody else because I tend to go off on the tangents and want to tell everybody the background or the development. We really emphasize why we do those skills, and that's why I enjoy those tangents, because the why is usually answered by things that are at a deeper level than the average student thinks they need to know, or certainly comes in the door wanting to know. So when you get to go out with one of the certified instructors, they tend to stick more towards the actual individual skill development, but they're still capable of doing more than just telling people what to do. Our emphasis is always going to be on why.
Once you recognize the threat,
there really is a lot of dogma inside of the training industry, and as much as I try to stay away from it, I am very passionate about what I teach. It's one of the reasons you'll never hear me use that phrase, just another tool for your toolbox. I don't want to undervalue the material that I or my instructors provide. So my philosophy as an instructor really comes down to knowing why you're teaching what you're teaching and being able to articulate it to your students. If your answer is because that's what some military unit taught you, you're probably not in the best position to explain the validity of that technique. If an instructor boxes themselves in with that, this is the way we've always done it, so that's the way we're always going to do it approach, I think they really start to lose touch with what their student needs. You know, I always say that we should teach the student, not teach a curriculum. I don't care what the outline says, I want to give the student what they need and maybe even what they want most of the time in class. I've always enjoyed teaching, and whether that's formal instruction or just very informal, maybe sitting around the dinner table and telling somebody something they didn't know beforehand and seeing that growth or seeing that appreciation for information and knowledge and the experience of learning. So the research and the thought process that goes into developing the best programs I can is really important to me. I think that's why I enjoy instructor development so much. More and more I spend time helping other instructors share efficient training models with their students and help them develop their own approaches to training and help them grow to understand why we train a certain way, why the human body does certain things in a fight, what's going to happen at the beginning of a fight. So teaching for me is really an extension of what I enjoy, which is learning.
He is a very dynamic instructor. He makes it fun and educational.
Rob Pincus's rise as a trainer has been meteoric, and I think the reasons why are obvious. He thinks about everything he's teaching. He's immersed in this stuff, and he never stops learning.